Welcome, friends, to Reality Test. What is reality testing, you may ask? Well, it's something we all do every day, maybe with our loved ones over dinner, with coworkers at the water cooler, etc., when we check our subjective or personal emotions, thoughts, and so forth against objective or sort of more agreed upon fact-based reality. Although, because Dr. Ray and I, Dr. Kay, are social constructionists, we don't actually believe there's one true objective reality, but rather our own personal versions of it constructed in the context of relationships. But you get the idea. So here in Reality Test, we're going to be testing the castmate realities and the producer antics of our favorite reality TV shows against what we know as licensed psychologists about the reality out here, off of our TVs. We hope you'll join us as we attempt to reality test. That's it. Thanks, y'all. Now check out our campy theme song.
Are you feeling stressed? Your head's all messed? Well, let's forget all the rest. Fuck it, we're blessed, cause it's time to talk reality test. Come with us. Let's reality test.
Welcome to Reality Test. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Dr. Kay. Feel free to check in and take a seat wherever you like. We are two psychological doctors talking to you about reality television, and we just want to include our disclaimer up top really quickly because we're going to take it out of the automated zone of each episode and tell you that we are not your therapists or acting as therapists to the castmates either. In this role, we're just our whole human selves who happen to also be psychologists and professors and supervisors and therapists. So thank you so much for listening. We're excited.
We are so excited. We got a lot of traitors traitoring to cover. Shit went down this week for better and last week, because I guess we did our awards last week. So yeah, shit has been going down. The shit has hit the proverbial fan, and we're excited to talk all about it. I don't think I landed my shit plane there, but I tried my best.
I'm into it. I like that sometimes we'll leave metaphors open. It's fun. You never know what you're going to get, you know? Never know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I might come back to it in 45 minutes. We'll see.
Maybe we'll land the plane when you would normally land a short plane, not just immediately right after.
Exactly.
We're actually doing it more faithful to the metaphor. It's more faithful. We gave it a full flight. Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. To be clear, we're not saying we're faithfuls. We can't share that information with you.
Not after this episode. Not after episode 10. It's out. No more.
No more.
Oh my God, I'm so excited for episode 11. Okay, well, we'll talk about it. We'll get there. But first, though, tell me what's on your heart and mind today through Dr. Ray.
Bi-ness. I love bi-ness. And here's what I love. Mike White, White Lotus creator.
I love Mike White.
Bi. Yes, I have a thesis statement, and it is that bi people are just meant to watch reality TV. There's connecting thread, I promise. So apparently, season 3 of White Lotus, this very Southern couple is
Mike Parker
White
Posey, by the way. Parker Posey's like my favorite, and Jason Isaacs is also great. So both of those actors are fantastic. Yeah, okay, good.
And that Schwarzenegger kid is filthy disgusting, and he plays that role. So it's all really good. But anyway, apparently Mike White told them to watch Southern Charm to get ready for the role, and I'm obsessed. And so I just love that reality TV is so bi right now. I love that Mike White, excuse me, still recovering from pneumonia. Mike White is bi, and then we've got Traitors. We've just got so many bi people. Alan Cumming. We've got Gabby, who I guess she now identifies as lesbian. Fine. We've got Chriselle.
We lost her. Yep.
We lost her. We've got Kate and Parvati, who showed up in episode 9. And I'm just so here for the bi-ness of reality TV. It just makes me really happy. And in all spheres. So that's what's on my heart and mind this week.
Oh, I love that so much. And two other things I will say about that quickly is also Mike White was on reality TV. Did you know that? He was on Survivor.
That's right. That's right.
So he's a delight. Love Mike White. Delight. Love that he's bi as well. And then I was also going to say, so then there's also a really good bisexuality thread coming up in Love is Blind this season. So then I made a little video. People should go check it out about debunking the myths of bisexuality that came up in just that one conversation. And those are just like a few of the myths. There's so many, but just that one convo had a few. So check that puppy out on all our social meets. I love that. Great one. And also, yes, Southern Charm. Like they're sounding like, Patricia,
Yes.
Parker Posey is one of my favorite comics. She's hilarious since like the days of all of the movies that Christopher Guest did. So like Best in Show and Waiting for Guffman and all of those ones. So good. She's so funny.
Sh-
Okay.
She is so funny. Yes. Obsessed. Oh
So
my
good
gosh.
already. This season's already so good. I love it already. I'm so excited.
Yay.
Okay, good. And to the point about Mike White being on Survivor, Survivor also started this past week, so that will be another thing that might factor into awards at least at some point. And my check-in is actually something that you and I talked about briefly earlier today in a meeting for work, which is that spring has sprung, and it is such a good feeling. And it is so a little bit like, without it putting this too clinically, it's a little bit mania-inducing, a little bit of like hypomania, and that's actually like clinically true. That we know that about people, that in the spring some of our more manic energy can come up naturally. So it's exciting that we're in that sort of state of the year of the weather. And I also had 2 really good work things happen this past week that I just put me in a good place. So I'm in a good mood, having a good week.
Hey,
Mm-hmm.
amazing.
Yeah. So let's translate that into some chit chat about the Traitors. And we've got 2 episodes, as you said, because we did awards last week. So we're starting right off with episode 9. Why don't you take us away?
I love it. Let's see here. Episode 9. So, the end of first page, Danielle and Carolyn finish their contentious conversation. They are not on the same page at all about what to do. And yeah, as we said before, really, really silly that Danielle was trying to get her to make Brittany a traitor. Ridiculous. Yeah. Such a bad idea. For Carolyn. At the Survivors, such a bad idea for Carolyn, and for Danielle to even put it out there was so silly. At the Survivors breakfast, Carolyn and Gabby discuss Danielle. They were kind of talking about there's something going on there, and Carolyn said, she's like, I'm not gonna put to the side the fact that Danielle very much might be a traitor and people are seeing that, and I'm not gonna like kind of invalidate that, but I'm also not gonna like elevate it, which I think was a fine way to plan.
I thought she walked it well, because she's already at this point come out against Danielle, so for her to all the way go back in wouldn't work. It would put her game on the line. So I think I agree, did a good job.
She's doing a good thing. And then Danielle said, I'm a natural strategist. I've always played 20 steps ahead. Which I don't agree with, but I actually think she had a good episode, and it kind of elevated her game in some ways.
Before you even go on to the next part of that, because it's another part of her quote to the testimonial, I also have a seg right here, a little segment, which was, I wanted to take this opportunity to say that actually I gave Danielle, okay, perfect. This is your psyche is showing. Something that reveals something about a player's psyche or way of being in the world. So when Danielle said, I'm a natural strategist, I'm always 20 steps ahead, I was sort of like, what about that time that you played that challenge where you like gave the thing to Dolores, you gave the like safety to Dolores, and she was like, what are you even doing? And then you still did not like fix your strategy, and it just kept going wrong and farther and farther, more and more wrong. It was just like really not well thought out at all. So I was thinking that this kind of shows that there is not a whole lot of room for her self-reflection on how her gameplay has been. I don't think I've ever really heard her say that was not a good move of mine. Did you ever hear that? No, right?
Nope.
So I think she's in a place of kind of either like false hope or like in like just difficulties, sort of like self-reflecting and taking ownership for mistakes.
Exactly. And it sucks that her game then got elevated, but we'll see what happens. Because she's not been 20 steps ahead, but I think some of the things she did this episode with the game actually were pretty strategic in a good way, that I think she had a good week, but she hasn't been 20 steps ahead this whole game. That's just untrue.
Nope. Exactly.
And then Ivar regarding, you mentioned Dolores. What happened with Dolores there? I don't remember.
I probably just mentioned she came in.
Oh,
the other thing too, though,
yes,
that Danielle,
she's still here.
Danielle said, exactly, she's alive. When Danielle said, I'm a natural strategist, I'm always 20 steps ahead, she also said, Carolyn's going to make a move against me, so I need to plant seeds, which is just like helpful to know, because she does then start like a lot of the like side conversations end up being her like planting seeds against Carolyn.
Yes. And then Ivar really likes Sam and said Sam is very deep feeling and Dylan is very deep thinking. And as you said last week, I think it kind of plays into the whole, Ivar really likes his men kind of thing. Like, which is fair enough.
Yeah,
Dylan comes in. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say, and I don't mind that. I like his like homosocial. The homosocialness I don't mind at all, and I totally agree. That's great. And then the part I don't like is that then it also comes out as like negative against women, and that part I do not need. I don't need it. I fucking don't need it. I also felt like it was like a little low key shade at Sam that he said that Sam's very deep feeling and Dylan is very deep thinking.
Ooh, you're right.
Especially because Ivar is sexist.
Yeah, that sucks. Like Sam's kind of like the little boy toy, which is maybe like the stereotype about Sam that I feel like has been slightly debunked over this show.
Right, like the himbo kind of thing, exactly. And because we know Ivar doesn't like women, if he's seeing him as more deep feeling, he's also low-key seeing him as a more feminine, then that would be a negative thing to say against Sam. Obviously, I think saying deep feeling is a good thing, but not with Ivar's perspective on women. So, and I'll just go because I have the segment here as well. That the last line that Ivar says is like Dylan comes in. So Ivar goes, I really didn't think it would be Sam about who went home. And he was clearly like really disappointed. Sam went home. And given that he, Dylan, and Sam had started to like kind of buddy up a little bit, I could just see on Dylan's face the like energy kind of drain from his face. I actually kind of felt bad for Dylan that like basically what happens is like when the other person goes home, then like the person who stayed gets to like hear how disappointing it is that they stayed. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, so basically I was thinking this is a place for a psychological concept that would have made a better strategy a little bit better as far as like Ivar's relationship with Dylan. Because I think when he said that, I felt like it kind of hurt Dylan. Dylan, even later in the conversation at the kitchen breakfast time, even said he came back to it and was like, well, I'm really glad I'm still here. Like kind of fishing for people to be like, we're glad you're here. It was sort of sad. I felt bad. It made it really clear he wasn't happy. He felt bad. So I was thinking like empathy maybe on Ivar's part would help. And then like if at worst, like, or like at the very least, some perspective taking, like thinking about how that probably made him feel. And it must be hard to always, it made me realize that the game wise, systemically in the game, it must be hard to be the last person to come in who's not the one that went home because you constantly hear about how sad people are about the one that went. Right. So I was like, ouch for that part of the game. I don't know how to fix that. So I didn't make it a psych producer thing, but I think that's something they could think about how to do that maybe differently. And then the other thing was the perspective taking Ivar didn't show is something that Dylan then did show because then Dylan was telling us like, I think the fact I'm still here means that somebody who trusts me is in power. So I bet someone I care and trust about is a traitor. And he's damn straight right about that. So I thought he was not only using perspective taking in the way that Ivar couldn't, he was using it to benefit his game. So I think that was really good.
Yes. And even though Ivar, I think, is lauded as this intellectual, I think his social game is just not that good in my opinion at all.
At all. Mm-mm. The most social we saw was with Sam, and like that was a surprise because we didn't even really know. Otherwise, like basically what Brittany said that time about how he's basically like a piece of furniture that just gets moved from room to room because he doesn't talk.
Which is maybe that's good for his game because I don't really know why people think he's like the most faithful. I haven't picked up on what the deal with that is, but
I feel like he's mean. I think it's because he's mean. Like he says things like, you know what I mean? Like he's just sort of like. He can't help himself. He's too blunt. And I think people think that's therefore he must be honest and have a hard time lying and whatever.
Yeah, it could be true. But so post-breakfast scheming, Tom thinks Dolores has some red flags. And there's a lack of,
He said she does. He said she has a lack
of. Yes. Lack of, thank you. Lack of fear around getting shields. You guys take it. But then he gets very defensive at, sorry.
These are like Tom's view of Dolores. That's my bad.
Gotcha. No, that's fine. She gets very defensive at the table. And Gabby says, I think the traitors are going to start turning on each other if they haven't already done so. And we're going to see some drama. And she's dead right about that.
Mm-hmm. Get it, Gabby.
I know. So love it. Love her. And then Danielle said to Dolores, we're planting seeds regarding like Carolyn for being one of the ones to attack. Which I
didn't get. So that was her being like, she was like, so have you noticed that everyone, whenever they're a traitor, they just go attack. And the funny thing is, I think Danielle's hypersensitive to Carolyn attack her because she was the one who was the victim of it a few weeks ago. But no one else really clocked it because it was so quick and not that big a deal. So like when she says attack, if at the round table, everyone's like, what are you talking about? Like Carolyn doesn't do that.
Right. What do you actually mean here with this attack sort of thing? Exactly. much like Carolyn was hypersensitive later in the episode to no one understands me, and that kind of went against her in her game. Gabby asked Dylan if he thinks she's a traitor. He then decides to join forces with Gabby, and Gabby, regarding Dylan calling her out and now wanting to be best friends, said, "They always come back. Mark my words, girls. They always come back." So funny. So funny. I love that she's getting more of a showcase kind of in these episodes, and that she's making it to the final. Maybe it's just so.
Oh yeah, no, she definitely is, because no matter what, because now that the vote's between two, well, maybe. Oh yeah, right. Maybe we don't know, but we will know by the end of our episode today if she's going to make it to the end.
Yeah. Yay. Yes. Dylan says to Carolyn, "I think there's one traitor left, and I think it's Danielle." She asks if he'd vote for Danielle if Carolyn starts talking. And then he says, "Is it too soon to turn on Danielle again?" And Dylan promises not to throw her under the bus. With Britt and Danielle, Britt is heartbroken that Danielle wasn't going to be safe. She's worried about kind of Danielle's place in the game. And Danielle is feeling hella worried that she'd break her heart. I don't remember that part. What
she was worried she'd break Britt's heart by telling her she's a traitor.
Oh, right. That's right. And then Britt asks her if she's going for Carolyn, and Danielle just says just wait for the round table where she's going to build her case. The best case scenario is Carolyn standing up and admitting she's a traitor, so I can get Britt on my side. So she's kind of forecasting what she wants for her game, which she's already said essentially in the turret. It's not a surprise, but she would love for Carolyn to be out.
Yeah,
kind of thing.
Wants to replace Carolyn with Britt, and she's worried also in the meantime that Britt's going to be heartbroken that if Danielle doesn't. I think honestly, if it had gotten to the end and Danielle told Britt she was a traitor, she really would be, I bet, very heartbroken. So it is good that if she gets a chance to bring her into this case, that she would avoid that. The other thing I thought was interesting, so like the reason I included that she said just wait for the round table. When Britt asked Danielle if she was going for Carolyn, Danielle said just wait for the round table. She was very careful not to say Carolyn's name at all leading up to it. So there would be no like, oh, so and so said your name before now. So
that was pretty smart of her.
It was strategic. It was very smart. I noticed that during the roundtable, she used that as her case. She said, have I said Carolyn's name at all in the last 3 days? Like she asked the whole table, and everyone was like, no. So that's what she was doing.
Wow.
I realized later, I was like, oh, that's why she said, I'll tell you later. Basically, wait for the roundtable. So yeah, it was started back here. So the challenge is they all have to work together as a group and identify whom the traitors would pick for each superlative, and then move chess pieces to those respective names. So there's like a big life-size chess board. And Kate and Parvati are there, as we discussed in the check-in. So exciting, two bi women that we like very much. And Kate's from the Below Deck franchise, and Parvati's from Survivor Superstar. So they are the two chess game leaders, such that they basically like read out the superlatives. That's not a whole lot doing their role, but that's okay. They sit up on the throne, so we get to hear them chit-chatting about it, which is kind of fun. So, first question. The traitors. So this is the idea is that the traitors were all asked these questions separately. The traitors chose answers to the questions separately, and then now the whole group is asked together. What would the traitors say? And so that means even the traitors have to contribute to the conversation of whom the traitors would pick, and try not to give it away that that's what they chose. So, question the traitors were asked is first one: who was slithering under the radar? They said Brittany. They get the group to do that without revealing anything. It goes well. Once they agree on someone this huge, so once they agree on someone, there's this big black piece on the board that's like really spooky looking. It doesn't look, it's obviously not real. It's like a big, whatever, like statue. It moves across the board and stops in front of the correct answer. And I noticed that when it stops in front of a chess piece, which means that the group replaces the human that they're guessing with a chess piece on the board. When it goes in front of the chess piece, they have to cut to the chess piece falling because they couldn't get the big guy to knock over the chess pieces. I don't know if you noticed that. We never actually see it knock it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't pick up on that. That's hilarious.
It cuts to the chess piece on the floor. Like, oh, okay.
A producer edit was taking place there.
Exactly. They're like, oh, shoot, we can't really get that to work. But that's okay. We'll just knock it over and act like it did it. That was funny. So the next question was, who is the biggest threat to the traitors? Are we thinking Dylan? Are we thinking Britt? Tom strongly votes for himself, while acknowledging it puts him into a risky place to say that. And then he was shocked, simply shocked, when it turns out it wasn't him. It was Brittany who was seen as the biggest threat to the traitors. Brittany was shocked too. So the idea was that so Danielle tells us, well, Carolyn doesn't realize I did this to protect myself, because it would be Brittany would be shocked. It would show that it can't be Danielle, because Danielle wouldn't feel like Britt's a threat. But I kind of felt like, wouldn't they then also be like, that's diversion, purposeful diversion? There's been a lot of that, of like, okay, if it was this person, they wouldn't do this, but that could mean that it is them because they know they wouldn't do this. It's like the second flip. So reverse psychology.
Yes, indeed. And then the reverse psychology for the really overthinking players. Tom doesn't really even go to reverse psychology. It's just kind of he just kind of looks at what's happening.
Exactly. I'm not even sure psychology is the word.
Yes, exactly. It's just what is happening in the moment. It's concrete. He's a very concrete thinker.
Yes, very concrete, here and now thinker. And he definitely thinks highly of himself. So there's that. So the next question is, who is the leader of the pack? Tom again self-nominates. I put in parentheses, lol, stop Tom.
It's so cringe. It's so cringe.
So cringe. Like, and he cannot even help himself. He's like, me. I think it's me. I'm going to say me. Like, just goes right into it. But everyone agrees it's Dylan, which I love that, because it is kind of like Dylan is quietly leader of the pack. He's like leading from within rather than needing to be like outwardly directing traffic, if you will, which is more of a Tom thing. So I like that everyone agreed Dylan really is the leader. But Carolyn, sweet baby angel, just like loudly disagrees with everyone and says, no, I think it's Tom. It's probably Tom.
It was bad. I was like, that was her biggest mistake. If she wouldn't have done that, I think she would have been fine. I think she might have gone to the end. But watching her play that game, I was like, oh my God, you were misstepping hard here.
It was so painful. And she didn't really clock it until the end, the very end. Even when Dolo was like, you really went, it's like, so we'll come back to that. But the other thing I was thinking about is like, Dylan also felt very close to Carolyn. So I can see why he might have been like noticing that she didn't want to say Dylan. Like, he's sort of like, well, what about me? Like, I get that you like Tom, but like, hello, you can like just not go so strongly against me being the leader. So it's definitely stood out to him. Like, he was very aware of it before we turned out to find out. Sure enough, the answer was Tom. So how interesting that Carolyn so strongly thought it was Tom. And then it was Tom. So now she's now super saying it's her about the last item. Okay, this is the last one. So then the last one was, who is listened to the least, basically. Like, who do people respect the voice of the least? And Carolyn is hardcore going for herself. She's like, well, it's obviously me. So first of all, what happens is she knows that's going to be the last question. So at the end of the leader of the pack question, she goes, no one ever listens to me. Have you noticed? No one ever listens to me. She starts like planting seeds before the last question is even asked. So bad.
Girl.
So bad.
She missed the mark there.
Wicked missed the mark. And Dolo had said too, like, you went against Tom, or you said Tom, and it was Tom. She's like, no, I didn't say that. But then she ends up going on to say, like, no one ever listens to me. It's just it was like really back and forth and messy, and everybody was just sort of like, what's happening? Like, why is this happening? So then when she went into the last item, who do people listen to the least? People weren't really going to jump to Carolyn. They weren't going to say that. But she was like, well, obviously it's me. I'm irrelevant. Everyone thinks I'm irrelevant. And everyone's like, we don't think that. And she's like, no, everyone thinks that. It's got to be that. So then they go for her, and it is her. And so then it's like, and so Dylan very, smartly says, like, it's interesting because really she's the only one who thinks her voice is irrelevant, which is like rough. So skip on downtown to the post-challenge schemes. Post-challenge scheme is happening between Dylan and Carolyn, who are discussing, and Carolyn raises that people don't take her voice seriously, both in life and on Survivor, which I really appreciated her raising awareness about this issue at large. Very, very important. And I also think it did kind of like pique Dylan's, empathy a little bit, because he's reminded that like this is a hang up for her. So like no wonder she was like stuck on that. It's not just because she is the traitor, it's because she's stuck on that. And preoccupied. So I thought that was really important conversation. And I liked that she kind of challenged him to think about what he contributes to that as well. And to her. I have a segment here as well.
Oh, hey.
Do you too?
No. I think it's an important thing to highlight. I thought it was a really good move, but I forgot to make it a segment.
Yeah. So I did the, unfortunately mine's a negative one, but, so for Carolyn, should be the Carolyn. First of all, my sociopolitical issue is the ableism against Carolyn. And so this is where there will be a negative one coming up, but this is where I wanted to share the positive that goes into that, then like, creates the foundation for it. So right here, she's like reminding us too, it's not just Dylan, right? She's like reminding us like, this is also like who I am and how people treat me in general. And those are authentic tears. It's real, you know? And so I think that this was a really important scene. And then that'll set up for the roundtable that comes next, and where this will become negative against her, but also for me, like against her in terms of we're drawing attention to the negatives that shouldn't be there against her, and then also some of the negatives against her play. So here we go. Come on, Ivar. He's speaking to Danielle and Dolores. He brings up that Carolyn named it. Oh, no. Okay. This is part of my negative one about it. This is it. This is my whole sociopolitical. Here we go. We're going right for it.
Okay.
So come on, Ivar, I say to myself in the notes. He's speaking to Danielle and Dolores, and he brings up that Carolyn named Danielle. And basically he was at this point agreeing with Carolyn about Danielle. So then Danielle goes, well, really? Like, I think. And then she brings up the Columbo character and this idea that Carolyn might be acting dumb to fly below the radar, which is so dangerous. Like right there, that is such a dangerous thing to say about somebody who's neurodivergent. Like, and it turns out that we know that Danielle knows better than that, but no one else there knows that. So from their perspective, she's really honestly being extremely ableist and making it okay for the others at the table to be like, right, she's too dumb for this, or like she's playing dumb. She's probably not as dumb as she seems. She's probably playing dumb. Like, you know, this whole thing of like challenging her to be, whether that's authentic how she is, because she is being herself. She's actually not playing dumb. She's just not playing. She's not playing dumb so much as she's like playing up parts of herself that are already there. And it's not about being dumb. It's about being sort of like out of it, or sort of, you know, it's not really being dumb. So it's just so incredibly cruel of Danielle to use that. And she basically, so she's also, again, by the way, very careful not to use Carolyn's name. She just says, sometimes there are people where I think it's like Columbo, where they're acting. And then she just sits there looking at Ivar. And then finally we see the lights come on in Ivar's head. And he's like, that could be Carolyn. And she was like, yes. It's like, so God. I think, yeah, it is really, really, really tough for me here, because my whole issue here is that Carolyn, for the first time ever, I have to admit, was playing a bit of a sloppy game. So at the challenge, obviously, that was pretty sloppy. I will say that Dylan and Danielle both said tentative things that surprised me. So like, I thought it was obvious as hell. I was like, okay, Carolyn's out, done, end of story. But actually what Danielle says to the camera is Carolyn doesn't realize some things kind of point a finger at her. That's what she says about it. And then Dylan says, this could be a clue that it's Carolyn. Those are very much more tentative things than I thought it would be coming out of it. So I think it maybe made it look more obvious to us than it maybe was to them, possibly.
Gotcha. They were more philosophizing than actually kind of saying it is true.
Yeah, versus like, yeah, they're like, they were more tentative, exactly, possibly potential, versus like, this is definitely obvious or whatever. So that was interesting to me. I was thinking maybe I wasn't. I think the editing made it just even more clear, but it still was a little bit sloppy game, we have to admit. Then we'll come back to the other part with the roundtable as we go into this. But so that is true. However, the sociopolitical moments are so gross. So there's, in this conversation, we also see Tom talk to Ivar, and Tom says, "I don't think she could carry it off." No. Ivar says that first. Ivar says, I don't think she's able. Yeah, I don't think she's able to carry it off as a traitor. And then that's why Tom says that he trusts her. He's like, that's why I trust her. It's because you're saying she's not able to carry it off. You're saying she's not good enough to be a traitor. That is so ableist and so upsetting. And if it were Boss and Rob telling you that, would you have heard it differently? Like what she said, you know? And it's so shitty. So I like, so then Carolyn and Dylan talking to Carolyn said that to Dylan. She's like, if Ross and Rob were telling you this, wouldn't you hear this differently about what Dylan was saying what Carolyn was saying to Dylan? And then Dylan says to her, I know your story more than most people here do. And to hear I'm doing the same thing, it makes me feel like shit. So I think, you know, like she's bringing our attention to it through her conversation with Dylan right here in the same little subsection we're in. And then it makes it more obvious that then when Danielle goes for her and at the round table says, you are playing dumb, Forrest Gumping. It's so sketchy. It's so
that
fucking ableist.
Awful. Yeah.
So fucking
really
ableist.
Bad.
And especially because if she wasn't a traitor, she wouldn't know to use that argument at all. And so to other people who don't think that Danielle is a traitor, it's even, how is that not making people be like, whoa, like careful, you know, like that's so bad. And it is bad anyway, even though she knows that. It doesn't matter, you know? So I hated that. And we'll continue for the other people's pieces that come up. But yeah, say what you're going to say, because I'm done for now.
Oh, yeah, the Forrest Gumping was bad. And I forgot that happened. And that was so awful. Like, what the actual fuck are we saying in 2025? It was wild.
So bad.
Ugh. So to the round table. We're at the round table, right? Am I at the right? Oh, yep. Perfect. So Danielle is set to come for Carolyn and did a good job at it since Carolyn made a grave error by coming for Danielle. And Carolyn is set to come for Danielle. So it is traitor on traitor behavior, as Gabby so rightly called. She knew. Carolyn
also, I just realized I said, come on, Ivar, in caps, because Ivar is the reason Danielle even ever heard that Carolyn was quote unquote coming for Danielle, because actually Carolyn did a pretty good job. You know, she wasn't being that bad about it. And she just sort of like mentioned, like, I guess like Danielle did because of the lie. And then Ivar turns around and goes right to, and says to Danielle, well, Carolyn said your name. It's like, so that made it sound so much worse than it was. And it ended up just like triggering this huge fight. So that was a bummer.
Right. Ugh, so sad. And then Carolyn has a super hard time defending herself. I think that is maybe the biggest weakness in her game, is she's not maybe the best at defending herself. Nothing about being smart or not smart or anything like that. It's just that I think being put on the spot in that way really flustered her. Yeah. In a way where weirdly Danielle is kind of in those situations able to like kind of get it together and really like, maybe if she's not sleeping, she's spending all her time at night just like kind of rehearsing what she's going to say. Because I thought she was great.
She felt very prepared for sure. For sure.
Yes.
This is my part about the round table with Carolyn's part at this. I do think she was maybe more realistically faithful because she didn't come prepared. You know what I mean? I was sort of like, well, that almost makes her more faithful because she didn't have this whole thing. And I think it was surprising no one said that. No one was able to say like she didn't really have a case because she didn't expect this, because she didn't think that she was at risk. And I think it was like really, really, really smart of Danielle that she didn't let it get back to Carolyn at all, that she was going to be coming for her, by not saying Carolyn's name at all, because then Carolyn didn't have a chance to prepare her defense. And sure enough, that is what sort of sent her down the river there, like sent her, to her banishment, if you will. So I feel like that's a bummer, but it also isn't totally Carolyn's fault. But yeah, I agree. I think the worst thing for Carolyn, was the underpreparedness and not having her case like delineated.
Yeah. Oh, and so then next came the votes, and Carolyn ends up going home. There are 3 votes for Carolyn, 2 for Danielle, 1 for Tom, and 1 for Dolores. They voted for each other. And then Dylan ends up voting for Carolyn as well, which was so heartbreaking. I hated it. It broke my heart because you can tell they're genuinely friends. Yeah.
It was so, so fucking sad. And I did notice, like, so one was like Danielle was obviously sobbing and shaking in a ball. But I also noticed that Dolores was like jaw to floor. And I was wondering if there was even like a touch of ableism in that too. Like, like the total shock, the total absolute shock that Carolyn could be a traitor. I was sort of like, yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I also said Danielle's sobbing and shaking thing. I couldn't with that. It was so much.
Way too much.
It was so much. And then it led me to think about her game in general and like this tactic of this overacting that she does that is so extra and so much. And I was thinking, I'm like, if she were to dial it down halfway, it might actually work. Like if she were to do half of what she has been doing, I think people wouldn't be so sussed out about her. Like, because I'm thinking about Phaedra, who like was emotional and connected and took things seriously. And Suri, it's interesting that I'm naming all Black women. I might need to reflect on that internally. But like, actually, Suri did a really good job forming connections and actually feeling bad. But like, it wasn't so much where it's like, what are you doing? Literally, what are you doing? And I think if Danielle dialed the knob down like 50%, I think it would have worked a lot better for her.
Great point. She was like, I did it. I said her. Like, it was almost like it felt like a child, but like, you know, it was just such a bizarre way of reacting. Like everything she said for the next 20 minutes was bizarre. I was like, what are we doing here? You know, like she's like, I
I'm
thought
so
so.
glad.
I did it. I got her.
Yes, I'm so glad you said child. There's something I'm going to come to in the next episode where there's elements of her presentation that are very childlike when she feels a certain way, and I'm not sure what that like. It's almost like she puts on like a baby voice. I noticed that in the most recent roundtable, and I'm like, what is this? This is so weird. But
it's so weird. It also suggests probably like trauma in her childhood, which is sad. You know, she sort of like got developmentally stuck at the age she was when she was traumatized, which also could be like recent trauma stuff related, or it could be actual Criterion A trauma. Not actual, because both are trauma, but it could be traumatic event, or it could be a series of like, you know, events or ongoing systemic racism.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, has she learned to, in these situations, code herself like white women code themselves, but like also the developmental trauma piece makes perfect sense too. Oof. Ugh. So then post roundtable scheming, after Carolyn was voted out, even if I'm not listened to, I love myself, and I'm proud of myself. Gabby wondered if there was a Danielle versus Carolyn thing going on that she definitely picked up on so well. And then oh, yes, go ahead, please.
She gets my strategic player because of that. I gave her my my episode 1 best strategic player for this game. It's just that she did a great job. She like picked up on this fact early on. She said, remember that in the very beginning of the episode, she said, I think we're going to start seeing traitor on traitor violence. They're going to start getting mad at each other and fighting. Nailed it. She brought up the fact that Bob the Drag Queen and Rob looked exactly like Carolyn and Danielle did. Nailed it. She told the right people. As soon as it turned out Carolyn got voted out, she then went to Danielle and was like, you were so right. And like did a good job of like pivoting to like show support of Danielle, but also as a way of reminding everyone, like, you were so right. Like you were so certain and you were so correct. What do you know? Like, and I think she's done a great job throughout the game. That made me think that like she was friends with Carolyn, but she never put herself out there so hard for somebody that it put her in jeopardy. But she never went so far out there for Nikki or any of the Bambis, and she never went so far out there for Carolyn to put herself in danger. But she, I think, nailed it with this game. I think she's doing a fantastic job anyway, but this particular episode was a real win, I thought, for her so far.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a really good point because I feel like Chrishell, when Nikki, Chrishell kind of put herself out there in ways that were tricky. Oh, yes. So then the turret, Danielle is probably going to recruit Britt. She will have to meet her recruitee and ask them if they want to join her or die, which is quite the choice.
Yeah.
It's a real choice there. And after she recruits, she can murder as usual. Oh, did she murder? Excuse me. Did she murder someone too? I forgot that.
Yeah, she and Brittany then worked together to murder Tom.
Oh, that's right.
This is where my if producers were psychologists moment, because this is a game mechanic that is broken. Because right now, when they were told before, when Danielle and Carolyn were told, you can recruit or you can kill. If they chose to recruit, everyone would know there was a new traitor. It's terrible. It's not a good recruit mechanic. It doesn't work, because then they cannot recruit someone or it's too obvious. So I think what they needed to do and what they need to do in the future seasons is they need to build in another reason why someone might not go home all the way along the season. Like anytime. There could be that someone doesn't go home that week because, this week's just a fancy footwork week or whatever. So like I think there needs to be some other feature they start using. Like maybe there's an individual power that someone can use to block themselves that no one knows they have. And so that means that person might have gotten targeted because no one knows, but that person was saved by their own shield and no one knows who it was who had it. So that could be a reason someone doesn't go home. So even if that never happens or never gets used, if people know that's a possibility, then week 10 or whatever, when then someone is recruited, it could look like someone was just shielded. It could be something else that it could be, even if it wasn't what it was. So I think that needs to be entered into the game chat big time. Then, though, when we got to this second episode, or we got to the end of this episode, I started the episode with that attitude, kind of pissed about that. I was like, we need to figure this out. At the end of the episode, though, they did fix it sort of by saying, okay, you can recruit someone and then you're also going to murder someone. Either you murder the recruitee because they don't join you, or you murder someone else. And so I was like, okay, good. So that's why I wrote in caps, yep, got to. They've got to do it. They had no choice. They have to do this.
Right. Otherwise, it becomes very obvious because there's so few people left. It just, anything you do is significant in all the ways.
Exactly.
Yes. So, and then we see in the trailer for next week, there's a seer thing happening where where someone will have a special power. And it sounds like,
yeah, I'll just say this real quick because I was having, this is because I hadn't seen it yet. So I was sort of seeing in the preview, I was wondering to myself, like, are there strengths or deficits to knowing? Because I had just guessed this is what the power would be. It seemed like that was what it would be. And so then I was thinking, like, how can you do that, though? Because then say Gabby gets the power, she asks Danielle, then she can just go back and tell everybody Danielle's a traitor. So, like, that just seems too obvious. Like, why would that help any, or, like, what's the benefit there? And then I was like, is there a benefit to not telling people that you know? Or, like, you know, so sort of, like, playing through my head, like, how can this possibly work? But when they should tell us about the power, we end up figuring out it can be that powerful. You can be the one to be the seer and find out who it is who's a traitor and then tell everyone. You can do that. So, like, it is interesting. I thought they wouldn't let that. I was like, are they going to be sworn to secrecy? Like, how do you? But no, they're not doing that. It doesn't seem like. So I was just sort of interested in the game mechanic of it, but I love it. It's a new power, so we'll talk about that in the context of its episode. But I will say that the show ends with Brittany being face to face with a hooded figure. So she's recruited. She says to us, I thought it could be Danielle, but would Danielle really recruit me? Because that's like too obvious. It would put us both in danger. So she was thinking it was a bad idea if she came for her as a traitor to join. Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yep. And she was right about that. So then to follow up on, it's your turn, I think.
Yes,
my bad.
Yes.
Sorry.
So then episode 10. Sure enough, we follow up on that Traitors turret, and Britt and Danielle are there. Britt ends up being very grateful that Danielle recruited her. At first, she's sort of like, "Wow, the whole time?" She's like, "Yep, the whole time." She's like, "Okay," but then they brainstorm on the next murder. You have a.
Oh, that's right. That's right. What we just said, sloppy gameplay for Danielle to pick Britt. It was just such an obvious choice, and even Britt knew it. So So I just, not a good gameplay, but obviously what she was going to do because she said she was going to do it.
Yeah. And she ends up telling us, like, this is what it should have looked like in the Traitors turret for us to be strategizing. And I do kind of get that. They were much more collaborative. So Britt lets Danielle know, by the way, Tom and Gabby are onto you, and as is Ivar. So they know they have to pick one of those three. Yeah. And Britt had the great point that if you kill Gabby, it might let Tom refocus on Dolores, because Tom was both thinking Dolores and Danielle, whereas Gabby's just thinking Danielle. So that's how they left it, and it looked like more likely they would kill Gabby.
I thought they were going to kill Gabby, too. I was happy they didn't.
Yeah, so then we go into the Survivor's Breakfast, exactly. Dylan says he's suspicious of Danielle, but needs to move forward trusting that she's a faithful just for, like, the sake of the game. And then Dolores
I didn't get that. I was like, do you think it's just he, in his mind, was like, she's kept me here, I guess I'll just maybe like subconsciously to the final and then I'll vote her out because she's obviously that's what I was wondering because I thought it was a weird
I also hung on to that moment for the same reason. I realized they cut it. It wasn't shown all in a row of him talking the whole time. So they cut and pasted a little bit for what was taken. And I think what he was saying is with Danielle, he has to act to her like he thinks she's a faithful.
Sure. I think because she's sensitive to that and onto it. But
right.
Yeah, totally.
And they're there alone and at the kitchen table or at the breakfast table talking about it. So like he has to pretend like he agrees with her and we trust each other and we're good. You know, in that moment in particular. So I could see him saying it like that. Like, I have to just go forward with thinking she's a faithful in this moment.
Yeah. Totally.
Right.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. So then Dolo is still gung-ho against Tom. He's like, Tom's a traitor. Everyone knows he's a traitor. Gabby's safe. We were all so excited. She clearly was still on to Danielle. And then I said to myself, is Tom gone? Is it Tom? Could it be Tom? Because I went to commercial. Sure enough, we come back. And Tom's gone, baby. Bye, Sando.
Bye.
See you later. So someone brought up, Dylan, I think, said, well, obviously Carolyn was keeping him in the game. The night she's out, he's out.
Yeah, I guess apparently Carolyn, I saw in an interview that Carolyn and he maybe had an okay relationship.
Yeah,
and maybe it's her. Yeah, her thing of like rooting for the underdog kind of thing, like wanting to see him succeed or whatever.
And she had no clue. She'd never heard about any of
Yeah.
it. She didn't know he had cheated. She didn't know about Ariana. And so when she came into the game, she was told by a bunch of people, like, watch out for Tom, watch out for Tom. And she was like, why? Like, I don't get it. And so I think as soon as she heard that, she was, I agree, like thinking about people doing that to her and being like, what, you know, like that people go off of no information to dislike somebody. And so I think she wanted to give him a chance. And he is funny. And he is, you know, like, you know, from her perspective, he is sort of funny because he's so goofy and like himself, he's his whole self, which is what she likes, you know.
Right. Yes, he certainly is that. I said it was socio-political because Alan, when he was like, Tom, for once you were actually faithful. So funny. Such a good line.
Good. Such a clippable line. So good. Oh, Tom, for once you were actually faithful.
Ooh,
Yes.
excellent reading of that line. Yes.
I wasn't thinking of that. God, no. I loved how he's so theatrical. I love him. I love Alan. Yeah, that was hilarious. I loved that. And I think it's cute she protected him too. I think that's also sociopolitical, to your point. You're right. It's like she's sort of like in the place of like thinking protectively about other people who are vulnerable to people disliking people who are not the same. And I like that that's, another piece there. So he also lets us know, Alan lets us know that this will be the last round table before a banished person this will be the last round table where the banished person will have to give their identity as a traitor or faithful.
Mm-hmm.
There will also be an individual power granted at the mission. He basically says, stay tuned. This is a brand new feature because we've never had individual powers before. After the breakfast, Danielle and Gabby have an awkward conversation at the bar. Very awkward. Danielle and then Dolores, Danielle and Dolores chat, and Dolo tells us that she's considered Danielle family because she's a friend. So
that was sweet.
Oh my gosh, so sweet. It's like very like New Jersey kind of thing or whatever, which is cute. So I have here a game tactic or strategy using a psychological concept because it has come out in the works here that it turns out that Danielle was telling people off camera that she swears on her grandchildren that she's a faithful.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Tony.
Yes, exactly. It enters an interesting sort of element there because that is a game tactic she's using to try to get people to believe she's a faithful. And that's sort of inappropriate. She's been getting a lot of heat for it. People don't like it. But at the same time, I was thinking about it. I was like, is there a way in which she can say, I don't swear on family and not look like she's lying? Like, is there a way to not do it if people are doing it?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
It's tough. Not great.
Yeah.
So Ivar and Dylan, right? It's sort of an interesting sort of like fuss being made right now. Ivar and Dylan chit chat and discuss Gabby. Gabby and Britt discuss that there could be two traitors. And Dylan and Britt discuss Gabby. I basically gave Brittany right here, just wanted to say quickly, I gave Brittany the like strategic player for this episode because she was doing great, doing a great job lying and just like hanging with. Even at the breakfast, she did a great job pretending like she's faithful. Gabby and Danielle end up in a room together again. And then in the testimonials, Gabby says, I'm not succumbing to the awkward silence in the room with a cold-blooded killer. And Danielle says, I'm going to
Loved it. I was obsessed with her being like, I'm not giving in to the pull to engage right now. I thought that was phenomenal. I loved it.
It really was.
Yes.
It's you.
Yes, the challenge. Alan says there will be a seer who will have the power to learn another player's identity by inviting them to a private one-on-one. So it's a pretty big power. The challenge is down memory lane with mini challenges that represent past challenges. There's like the clowns challenge where Dolo and Britt go for round 2. Gabby goes for round 2 and loses. There's then the dolls challenge. Hate the dolls.
Oh, they're so gross.
So creepy. Where they pull the strings until it takes you out of the game. Danielle successfully pulls 2,000, so she stays. Dylan pulls, but then gets out. Then there's the cages challenge where it's kind of like Mario Party where there's all these mini games. It's kind of fun.
Yeah, cute.
And then the cages challenge, you get coins to put in your cage to raise the cage. Dylan can tell Danielle really wants this and notes that this is suspicious. Dylan, oh my God, I love this. This was this was just funny, but I guess I said it was socio-political. I do think Dylan's been very willing to be playful with like queer
Yes.
people, which I
Yes.
love. Like I
Yeah.
think he's a great ally. Dylan said, "What exploded on my face?" And Alan said, "I hate that." I was obsessed.
I hate that.
I wish they
I
actually would have
absolutely-
elevated that moment more because I thought it was so funny.
Oh, it was hilarious. I died. Yeah.
Yes, I died of joy.
Exactly.
Yes,
It was so good.
so good.
Oh, I hate that.
Yes. And then we don't know who the seer is. So this will be withheld until the round table's over. So a little mystery. And then there's some post-challenge scheming. Excuse me. Dylan tells Danielle that he thinks it'll be her or Gabby tonight. I thought that was weird. I don't know why he did that. I thought it was an odd move. And even though I may have gave him strategic player, spoiler alert, like I still was like, he's making a few weird moves that I don't understand, but I do think he prioritizes relationships in a way that serves him.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, I don't know. I was going back and forth. And then Ivar and Britt, it was so funny too that they call him Iva, and I'm like, is that because he's British and that's how he pronounces it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's funny.
I noticed that too for the first time in this episode. I was like, oh, Iva, okay.
I know. I don't think they were doing that before. I was confused. I was like, what's happening? But
yeah, it's almost like a nickname based on his accent for himself. It's cute.
Right. And then Britt's explaining that she can't put Danielle's name down, even if it would make her maybe look better. Britt went right for Gabby, and then Gabby went for Danielle. Danielle goes after Gabby for being the girl next door. I had a segment here, but actually I want to wait till farther down. Gabby did an amazing job. She was so grounded. But then I was thinking, I was like, damn, okay, I validate these women for when they code more masculine in these round tables. I'm like, oh, you did a good job because their voice isn't shaking or they're not being so bubbly. And then I'm like, what is it about a more like patriarchal style that makes you more believable, like more
powerful? It's seen as more powerful, exactly. Like masculine, standing strong. I don't know. For me, I don't know that it's necessarily the voice shaking piece for me. I think they do well when they can have responses to arguments, and it doesn't have to be the way they do it. I think it's just like, but even with Carolyn's, like I found Carolyn's believable, frankly. The fact she didn't have an argument about each of that made me feel like hers was believable, and she was crying. I thought that was good. I thought it was good. So I don't know. I think it's a mix, but you're right. There is something very patriarchal about what will be seen collectively or objectively as like a good job.
It's something to that. But I think she did go line for line with Danielle, and she didn't back down because she knows Danielle's a traitor. I noticed in that interaction, then Danielle's voice started to get more and more childlike as Gabby was going line for line with her. And that's where I thought her psyche was showing. And my initial read was like, has she learned to code as a white woman when she feels backed into a corner, because that's very adaptive in our society. But then your point about trauma, I think that's a really good piece too. Like that might be what is happening for her.
Right. She's regressing out of stress.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And then, I just thought Gabby was incredible. And I put her gaming tactic as like being more patriarchal in her communication. But I like it. I like what you said too, of just like going tit for tat with what's being said and fully maybe thinking through the thesis statement of your argument when you go into the round table.
Totally. Being responsive, relationally responsive, which is a feminine thing, which is nice. And exactly that can involve having a little bit more of what's seen traditionally as masculine in terms of having like a powerful thesis, but like also like powerful in the way that you communicate it. Definitely. I like that. Yeah, and this is totally the part too of how I thought she won the strategic player of the game for me for this episode. Her round table was solid, very well done, and she just stayed right with her, and she was like, "Yep, me too." I also thought she was very feminist in her support by saying it might not be you either. We're in the same boat. You and I are both being targeted. Like That was really good.
Even though I think she knew Danielle was a traitor, but she was being open to the fact that maybe she wasn't. And Brittany and Danielle were stressed. And then the votes. So for Danielle, Gabby, Ivar, and Dylan. For Ivar,
crazy.
yes. So if producers were psychologists, I think it would have been interesting because I didn't know that Ivar was such a target going into that round.
He wasn't. Can I tell you what happened? I know what happened. So the thing was, he was not a target at all. He was only Dolores' target. But Brittany and Danielle, privately while talking prior, figured out that if Dolores went for Ivar and they also went with Dolores, they could get out Ivar. But if Dolores went for Ivar and they went for Gabby, they wouldn't have enough to get Gabby. So it would split the vote, which would mean that Gabby would win by getting Danielle out, by getting 3 people. The only way to fight the 3-point thing was to go for Ivar. Yeah.
I think that was a really good tactic. So my thing was going to be producers, psychologists.
This is my turn now.
Vibe.
Yeah.
But
okay, I like that.
No, it sounds like they were just playing smart, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't see them strategize. But as soon as I saw Danielle go for Ivar, I was like, got it. Because Danielle also told us face to face, to our faces, she said, I'm just voting out of survival mode right now. And I was like, okay, that's weird she said that. And then she voted for Ivar, and I was like, great. So they saw that Gabby was doing such a good job that no one was going to, they said at the beginning, we need to know that Dolo will go for Gabby. So when Dolo said, I'm not going to vote for Gabby, I'm going to vote for Ivar, to the whole round table, that means that Danielle and Britt looked at each other and were basically like, plan B. We're going plan B now. So then Danielle went for Ivar. And then Britt, I guessed it at that point, but because I figured they were probably pivoting. And sure enough, they did. So then there was a draw. So then we find out what happens at a draw because we've never seen this before. Alan tells us we're not leaving the room until someone's vanished. Someone is banished is the word. Don't vanish. Just banished. Get the fuck out. Danielle and Ivar get to both make one final plea, and then they're going to have another vote, and they're not allowed to vote. Those two are not allowed to vote. So Danielle uses her time to just go directly for Dylan and plead directly to him. But really all she says is please, 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 please. If it remains a tie, that means it'll go to chance, like they'll draw a rock or something. So it goes to the second vote. Dolo, this is the biggest deal ever. Dolo, during the second vote, looks at Brittany and like sort of looks then at Danielle and nods. And that made Brittany think, okay, she's going to go for Danielle now. And so Brittany was saying to us in her testimonial, like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. This is terrible. Because if I don't go with Dolores, then it could look like I'm trying to protect Danielle. And then I look like a traitor. But if I go with Dolores, I don't know if I could do that to Danielle. And meanwhile, they'd had this whole new friendship that had blossomed out of the fact they did not have a good history. In Big Brother, Brittany, voted out Danielle in a different context, and Danielle never forgave her. And so they started this whole game with her having to like leave it back together. It's so bad. It's how they started this whole season. And slowly over time, they've built back up this relationship. So she tells us, I don't think I could do it. It would destroy her, but it could really risk Brittany's game too. And she thinks probably that Danielle would understand it, that she would want to protect her game. But the thing is now at the round table, what is she going to do? Tell Danielle that she saw Dolores nod her head at Danielle? So because sure enough, we go around, we find out if anyone's changed their votes, and Dolores had not changed her vote. She did not change it to Danielle. So now we leave off with the cliffhanger of Brittany's vote. We don't know what Brittany's vote is, but it could be Danielle. And if Brittany voted for Danielle, Danielle will go home.
Crazy. Oh my gosh.
If Brittany voted for Danielle, no, it'd be wild. Absolutely wild. Absurd. If she voted for Danielle, Danielle would go home. It would be game over. So I was just like, oh my God. And Danielle's looking at her like thinking like, okay, good. So it's a tie again. It's up to chance. Like that's 50-50 chance. But I don't know. We don't know. And we still don't know. It's possible Brittany stuck to her guns and did not vote out Danielle, but she's looking real tough. She's looking like she's having a hard time thinking about what to say. Because now that Dolores didn't vote for Danielle, how could she explain it to Danielle? Like if Dolores had voted for Danielle, at least Brittany could be like, I had to go with what I thought was happening. But now she can't say that. Brutal.
Bad.
Such a good episode. Such a good ending.
Oh,
love it.
Wow. That was fun. I'm obsessed with that episode. 9 was good, but it was sad because Carolyn got out this. And I think we both just kind of stand for her. So Carolyn, call us if you ever
Yes,
wanna,
girl. We love you. We'd love to talk to you. We can help you raise awareness about mental health stuff. We're here with you all day on that issue. Big time. Yeah.
Yes.
And we hope
Ugh.
all of you will check out our stuff because we want to help all of us raise awareness around mental health things. And you can find that both in our episodes that you're hearing here, also on our Patreon at patreon.com/realitytest, REALITYTEST. You can also search in the search bar for the @ sign reality test to find us at Patreon. We also have memberships that are all $5. That's it. So you get access to all of our content with just $5 a month. Come join us. The first 30 members will get shout outs on the podcast. And once we have 50 members, we'll start giving out a donation to the ACLU monthly. We are also we're also on Instagram at Dr. K Pods and at Dr. Ray Pods. And we're at TikTok at drdr.realitv, REALITV. We're at YouTube at Reality Test Pod. That's the @ sign Reality Test Pod for our channel. Facebook, same thing, but no @ sign because it's our page, Reality Test Pod. And last but not least, you can email us at realitycheckpodding, PODDING, @gmail.com. Come check us out.
Yes. And it's been a delight, and we will see you next session.
But also rate, review, subscribe. That's your new thing.
Sorry. My new thing is rate, review, subscribe. And then we'll see you next session.
See you next session, baby.
Bye.